Well, welcome everybody to our second session. I'm going to turn the reins over to our educator par excellence, Dr. Jack Sakara, and he is running our education and technology educator meeting. Jack?
I've only played doctor, so don't pay attention to the doctor part of that, all right? Welcome, everybody. Thanks for getting up so early in the morning and joining us. This really is an important conversation and one that we're having with a number of committees, right? So we're looking at a COLP discussion, a community of learning and practice. We have teachers and interested parties from around the world in conversation about different issues that face us as educators and as students and as young transitional generation folk. So last week it was climate change. Arthur, you're up next week?
Yes.
And you are universal values?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So again, lots of great discussions to be had. An hour and a half. We've got a lot to do, a lot to talk about. Let's do a quick run around the room though and introduce ourselves. Again, I'm Jack from One World and former teacher and still, I thought I retired a few years ago, but he's back. So there you go. Thomas.
Thank you, Jack. My name is Thomas Ross. I'm going into my second year at Boston University, and I've been with One World for about the past 5 years.
Okay, and we're going to come back to you in just a couple of minutes. Arthur.
Hi, I'm Arthur. I'm president of the Joe Carbon Fan Club. Some of you are not yet members. I will be reaching out to you to join. And when I am not cheerleading all things Joe Carbon, I am president of character.org.
Absolutely. Great organization.
Oh, I also failed retirement like Jack did.
Sorry to hear it. Doug.
Hi, everybody. Douglas French. I am board chair of One World, and currently I'm a marketing executive at S&P Global.
Thanks for being with us again. Anna.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Nalaguari. I was born in Ecuador, but I live in Port Chester, New York. I am the Global Connections Coordinator for One World. I've been with One World for almost 2 years now, kind of, and it's been an amazing ride. So very nice to see everyone this morning.
And Anna's done an amazing job with our Global Connections programs, the most popular program that we have at the moment. And that's in large part because of her hard work and talents as well. Joanne.
I'm Joanne Ferrara. I'm the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Teacher Education at Manhattanville College, and I am the chairman of the Educational Committee. I don't know my title, but I believe, and I've been with One World for about 10 years in various capacities.
You have, thank you. Dan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Breakwood. I am a sociologist by training. I'm a One World board member, and I work as the managing vice president of customer insight for Gartner Group, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, we want to definitely hear from Dan. Joe, I'm going to pop up to you because you want to, I want to leave you out.
Director of One World, and I'm deeply honored and privileged to be working and talking with all of you. I can't thank for so many of you for really the volunteer time. Dr. Ferrara, you are chair of the Education Advisory Committee, and Dr. Ferrara and Doug and so many people just been, our students have been real supporters for a long time. We're going to level, I guess I'll turn it over to Lindsay, who's taking over the reins as executive director of One World. And we're thrilled to have her. Jack and I keep pinching ourselves that every day we wake up, Martha, you understand this. We wake up, she's still with us. And we praying her off, not yet.
Lindsay,
thanks.
you're up.
Thanks. Hi, it's nice to meet all of you. Most of you I've had conversations with. For those of you I haven't, as Joe said, I'm coming in as executive director and finishing up my degree at Harvard next week, 4 days. And I was an elementary school teacher before coming to Harvard. I will pass it to, well, back to Jack. Jack, you can keep roll call.
Thanks. Jacob?
Hi, I'm Jacob Shaw. I'm from Wales, and I'm a university student who did the financial course last year.
Great. Thank you, Jacob. And Adolfo.
Hi, I'm Adolfo. I live in Bolivia now. I used to live in the United States, and that's where I met Joe and joined One World. And I am trying to legalize my documents of graduation in the United States to enter college here in Bolivia.
Wow. Awesome. What a very eclectic group we have this morning too. And all these talents, that's amazing. Thank you
Jack,
all, really.
Jack, I apologize, but we're going to have an even more eclectic group hopefully in a second. Our Chinese friends have had difficulty logging in via Zoom.
Great.
And so hopefully they'll be joining us shortly. In fact, actually, I think in the interest of time, why don't you go ahead and continue with the program? We're recording everything.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yep, and I'm going to go ahead. So you keep going, and I'm going to try to get our Chinese friends on board.
So again, we thought it would be helpful, knowing that Dan was available to us this morning, to be able to frame the conversation. So let me just show you goals, and that's okay. I can go either way with that. But let's give Dan the floor then, and we'll work from there. Considering the impact of exponential change is part of what we're going to do. Lindsay, I threw you right off. That's okay. Thank you. Right. So how do we as educators and people who are interested in education respond to this enormous, rapid change in the tech sector? And we've got lots of examples to show you, but we thought we had our resident expert right on the board in Dan Breakwood. And so we wanted to give Dan, we sent him our PowerPoint today and said, have at it. And he gave us the blessing. So we're moving forward. Dan, I'm going to toss it to you for some opening remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, sorry I won't be able to attend the entire event today. It looks like an exciting session. Just a couple quick points. One, I don't think anyone's a pure expert in the field of technology. It's so broad and so expansive. There's obviously millions and millions of people that work in this sector, generating trillions of dollars of wealth around the world. It's obviously is growing exponentially and changing incredibly rapidly. One of the things that we're noted for saying is that the pace of change will never be slower than it is today, meaning it's getting faster and faster every single day, the amount of change. So just as a quick introduction, I do work for Gartner, which is a $4 billion IT advisory services company. That's right. All we do is advise companies on technology, and we're a $4 billion company headquartered in Stamford, Connecticut, with 16,000 employees all around the world. And we're helping corporations, mostly corporations, governments, make technological choices. Do they go with this solution or that solution? Do they move to the cloud, or do they stay on premise with their data? Those are, decisions that require tens of millions of dollars of investment by these corporations and schools and governments, and they want to get them right. And so they hire us to really look out and look forward. One of the things I want to encourage you all to do as you're starting this journey is go to the Gartner website, Google Gartner, and you'll see a tremendous amount of free research, free webinars, free information that's available. If you're interested in blockchain, if you're interested in quantum computers, if you're interested in data science and citizen scientists, those all are things that there's tons of free research available on the web.
Wow.
So just familiarize yourself with Gartner. That's my pitch for Gartner. The other thing, I just wanted to give you two little insights as you think about things today. One, Joe had mentioned saying something about quantum computers, and a couple of quick factoids on quantum computers. First of all, they're obviously very different than the computers that we use. They are exponentially more powerful. And so they're really very unique in terms of what problems they can solve. Very complex problems that are going to be basically impossible for us to solve with the laptops and the computers that we have and the cloud processing power that we have today. The second thing about quantum computers is when you think of problems with quantum computers, you think of like biochemistry, organic chemistry, climate change, very complex problems. The second thing is quantum computers are something that Gartner estimates won't really start impacting and adding tremendous value for about another decade. They're here now. There are quantum computers, think IBM, Google, Amazon Web Services. They have quantum computers. And in fact, this is a key point that you should always keep in mind. A technology that you think will be adding value and impacting average people's lives 10 years from now, there's a tremendous number of people working on it now. Right? Quantum computers has been something in development for over 20 years, probably even further back than that. But right now, Gartner estimates that 40% of large corporations will have a quantum computer initiative and strategy in place by 2025. So there are people working on this right now. Their strategies, building teams, figuring out how to use it. IBM has a quantum cloud that people are using and experimenting with and figuring out what problems they can solve with quantum computers. So that's one thing I just wanted to highlight for you, that when you first hear of something, a new technology like blockchain, like quantum computers, like any of these things, realize that people have been working on it for probably decades before you've heard of it and before it actually impacts your life. Think of the metaverse as another good example of that. As we move with 5G, as we move with quantum computers, that bandwidth is going to allow our two-dimensional computer screens that we're looking at to become three-dimensional. And that'll happen in probably the next 5 or 6 years with the metaverse, which will revolutionize how we interact with one another. The other point, the final point that I'll make here is that we're going to talk a lot, I think, today about uncertainty and the unease that people have with technology and the changes that are going on, and are we keeping up? And I just wanted to highlight one thing. We just did a recent study, actually, where we found the same thing, that average people, all of us, are very uneasy with the direction of the world, right? All the geopolitical things, the economy, the environment. There's so much uncertainty in the world that it's unsettling. But we did a survey of technologists, and it was interesting that almost 40% of them saw, so still, a minority, but a very large minority, 40% of them saw the world as more certain today than it was a few years ago. And the reason is because of the technology. And I'll just give you a quick story. I was actually in London for a conference, data and analytics conference that we just put on. And I was on the train going into central London, and I overheard a couple of people talking about where the train station was and how far the walk was to Buckingham Palace. And I thought to myself, well, the distance from the train station to Buckingham Palace, when I was young, 20 years ago, we would have said, well, it's a short walk. It'll take a while to get there, right? You give some vague answer. They said it was a 3.5-minute walk from the train station to Buckingham Palace. And that's because we all have these, right? And it tells you exactly how long you should expect to walk. It tells you exactly how long that train ride should be. It tells you when the next bus is coming, right? We know that today is going to be 92 degrees, not 91, not 93. It will be 92 degrees today in a record-breaking heat wave. So there's a tremendous amount of technology and infrastructure and data science that's actually making our worlds, in a kind of underlying way, our day-to-day world, much more certain than it used to be in the past. And so I just want you to juxtapose sometimes when you're talking about these big picture macro trends and the uncertainty in the world. actually how much certainty we have and how much we expect in terms of certainty in the world today. So those are my introductory comments. Again, I apologize for not being able to stay the whole time, but I will watch the recording, and hopefully, Jack, I'm more than happy to work with you as we move forward with this.
Yeah, we got to get you front and center more often. That's invaluable. So thank you so very much.
Jack,
Awesome.
one just quick note. I've noticed that our friends from China were able to log on.
Yep,
Can you just add them briefly? Yep.
I absolutely will. Thank you. Locke. Good
Just
morning.
if we get our friends from China, if you guys just take 20 seconds to introduce yourselves, who you are, and just 30 seconds, just intro. We've already done that, and we're sorry for the difficulties connecting today, but you guys just briefly introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Lark from China, and very glad to see all of you here. Sorry for the delayed joining in. All right.
We're so happy to have you with us, Locke. Thank you. Annie. Good morning, Annie.
Thank you, Jack.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hello,
there you are.
Yeah. Finally, I logged in, right? Okay, so hello, everybody. My name is Annie, and I'm from China, and I teach in Jingling Primary School. I teach them English. Nice to meet you all.
Which is an incredible one world school as well. Who am I missing here? Vicky.
Well, you're missing two people. One is
and Kiera.
Yeah.
I got her. She's not getting out of there. Vicky.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, hello. Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm from Jingling Primary School, China. I'm a teacher.
Thank you so much, Vicky.
And Kara, good morning, Kara.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, Kara.
They don't have you working this morning, huh? That's really good.
Yeah, yeah, she's taking notes. She's our note taker, Jack.
Okay, all right. I figured you just hopped out of bed, early on a Saturday morning just to see me, I'm sure. That's all right, Kara. Thanks, everybody. Let me do goals, and then I want you to, I want to get Thomas on to say a few words as well. But so what are we doing? We really do, again, we want to look at the impact of this exponential change, the speed at which it's happening, some of the major areas in which it's happening, and consider, positive, negatives, and how do we educate for a world that we don't know, right? We're exploring challenges we face, the VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That about sums it up pretty well. So we're looking at the promise of converging technologies as they come together to either alleviate humanity or elevate humanity rather to new heights, or, and I think this is the words they used in the UNESCO report, end our species' time on Earth. Are we into an age of abundance or scarcity? I think I'm going to have you discuss that question a little further on. But right now, let's hear from a former one worlder, and Thomas is home from Boston College, I believe, Boston U. And Thomas is a one worlder from way back. So Thomas, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you all for having me today. I think that the topics we're discussing today and the conversation we're having is really just indicative of the direction that the world is going in and the need for conversations like these. And when I got to college, I noticed that a lot of my peers and that a lot of people at college were not used to having these types of conversations. Because when we're discussing, initiatives that corporations are doing for CSR, CSV, the impact and the importance of the SDG goals and the future of the world, for a lot of people in college, these are the first time that they're hearing these things and that they're exposed to these types of conversations. And then I think back to my high school experience and being in one world for the past 5 years, these are conversations we've been having over and over again throughout my entire experience. And I think that when I look back at my traditional school experience, the way that the traditional school model is teaching kids is for the world of today and not the world of tomorrow. And I think One World's enrichment program is a wonderful supplement, but I think going forward, the curriculum taught by One World needs to be better embraced by the traditional school model. And I think if One World's educational curriculum can be embraced by the traditional school model, we will have a generation of learners that have a higher ability to apply these principles to the world and to make the world a better place.
Thomas, thank you so much. That's really, really nice to hear. Yes, by all means, you're getting the claps, Thomas. So
thanks, Jack.
One more invitational speaker, and then we'll move on to our into the meat of our presentation today. So Doug, you'll transition us to that. Doug French is the chairman of the board of One World, and so
hi everybody. And as mentioned, I've been a corporate marketing executive for 30 years. When I started my career, this term called the internet was just coming on board. And so we've been here before. We've had all this change back then. Oh my God, what's the internet? And I've been in business and technology information companies for 30 years. And it's always better, faster, cheaper. How are you going to create a better product? But what happens along the way is, as you become a leader like I have in managing teams across the world, you don't get the people or the practical skills. The corporation doesn't teach you those skills. So when you look at this past year and you have this rapid change around the world, how do you better deal with the change from a practical standpoint? Well, One World is the only place that I was to have the past 3 years in my 30-year corporate career that have gotten the real people skills where you can build trust. And so you're able to deal with this rapid pace of change that Dan just talked about, right? This information technology is changing. Oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? Well, what you learn with One World are those practical skills so that you can apply them and work with people and transition well with people. So it's the global network that Anna runs is spectacular. And I just think that I'm an example of all this rapid change in technology, not having the institutions prepare me for this, whether school or my corporate professional development career, but an organization like One World. As Thomas said, if we can incorporate this into our educational models and post-education into the corporate professional development area, that's going to drive real change and have people with the right skills. Because I've been at peace this past year because I've had the trust that I've built up and also the skills of empathy and everything that One World teaches about ESG, DEI, all these topics we've been talking about. So I feel much better prepared. And as a result, I'm getting much better results and succeeding. So there is a great practical impact of One World.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you very much. So the irony is not lost on me that perhaps the least technologically proficient member of One World is actually leading this discussion. But hey, listen, we'll get through it, and my support team will help. Linz, if you'll change, are you doing slides first? So let's go there, shall we? Give me one more. Let's get some. There we go. Okay, so there we go. That nice dark 40 less than 45-degree angle, clearly, that the "you are here" line, well, trace it back to the invention of fire, which enabled us to develop language, which enabled us to cook meat and live longer, right? And then agriculture, and then industry, and maybe we went through bronze and metal ages back when, and then an industrial age and on a nuclear age. And here we are with minds that work in a linear fashion. And all of our history has confirmed that. And if you look at the green line, it's been disappointing in that sometimes it's looked forward to, underplayed, failed technologies have been tried. And yet we are at that very special intersection where technology has shot skyward, not quite straight up, but darn close. And it's happening so rapidly that it's very hard for anybody. No one, I think, can compute it all. So artificial intelligence and medicine and neuroscience, right? They've moved from linear to exponential, and the changes are enormous. 100 years from now, our descendants will look back on us maybe like we do Neanderthals or chimps. Slide. And I'm going to move pretty quick. We have Spanish language slides in between, many of them, so we won't go there. If I walk 30 steps, I'll be on the other side of the room. It's a pretty big room. But if I take 30 exponential steps, they double with every step. That would allow me to circumnavigate the Earth 26 times. The chart on the right, it's a little fuzzy there, so let me extract from that, right? On the green line, you're looking at the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company. In 1920, it was 67 years. In 2015, it was 15 years. And they tell us, rest assured, that about 40% of the current companies won't be there in 10 years. So again, you know, companies that cannot adapt, that fail to move quickly, that fail to anticipate, are not going to do it. And those that break new ground are disruptors. And we've got a couple of disruptors here. YouTube, acquired by Google, $1.4 billion. Uber, from 2009 to 2020, right? Or 2015 rather, so 16 years, $50 billion, Uber. Marriott took 23 years to reach 28 billion. Airbnb did it in 7 years. So I'm sorry, Marriott took 88 years to reach that kind of money. So what used to take decades and decades and decades are happening almost overnight. And by the way, for everyone that comes on, we lose them. You know, when's the last time you saw a camera store? Or, you know, a Blockbuster or a toll taker, you know, and so on and so on and so on. Gordon Moore, Moore's law is what they talk about in technology a lot. Back in '65, he's the founder of Intel, by the way, right? He noticed that every 18 months, the processing power of a chip would double and that the price would come down 50%. So for example, and again, not on our chart, but let's go there quickly. A chip with 2,000 transistors in 1970 was $1,000. A single chip, 2,000 transistors, $1,000. The same chip 2 years later was $500. By 1974, that same chip was $250. And by 1990, a 2,000 chip computer was worth about a 2,000 chip rather was worth 2 cents. 2 cents. So as change happens, people fall off, companies fall off, technology falls off and is replaced. By the way, anybody need some 8 tracks? Well, probably not. Let's move on. Thanks, Linz. So Dan talked about what people are unsettled about, right? 5 big disruptors: AI, robotics, blockchain, energy storage, DNA sequencing, you know, adding 200 trillion in income over the next decade. And yet there's some concern to be worried about. So robotics, right? Dangerous jobs, bomb removals, use the space shuttle arm. They just built a robotic hospital, you know, operating hospital, special surgery hospital about 10 miles from the house, and they're giving tours. And you know what surgeons miss, the machines aren't missing. Artificial intelligence is going to help us diagnose disease and do the actual surgeries much better than, and without human error. But the same robots that vacuum your house can be adapted to work in warehouses. Amazon, for example, you've seen the little robots running around. They not only find it, package it, they ship it without human error as well. So again, you know, is it all good? Maybe not. What happens to those jobs? What happens to the people who work in industry, in trucking? What happens when the robo-taxis hit? What happens when cars drive themselves and they do it without accidents? Maybe insurance companies will suggest people shouldn't drive at all. Next slide, Linz. And I'm just going to highlight a couple. Convergence of technologies, right? Millions of people out of work because of AI and robotics, just those two. Delivery, transportation, manufacturing, right? People are going to need to be retrained or retooled. Are you ready for a world without work? And by the way, people are going to live longer. In the 20th century, we almost doubled the human lifespan. With all this technology, what are we talking about? 100, 110, 120, 130? Healthy people who still want to work. And yet a younger generation behind it is going to be looking for jobs as well, right? So corporations may help, jobs may help. There'll be green jobs, right? Corporations noticing that you can make a buck with green labels on the environment and maybe clean up some of the spills and toxic waste that they've already dumped, and at least help us clean the planet a little bit better. So maybe help is on the way there. Next. Thank you. The headline says it all. We can cut and paste life. The CRISPR technique that allows us to cut DNA and remove it and replace it with another piece, right? CRISPR. That's the technique, if you would, right? Clustered repeats, spaces between DNA that you can safely cut. And it's going to allow us to maybe any kind of birth disease can be removed. Hemophilia, gone. Maybe the diseases which turn on, or the conditions that turn on cancer genes or not, right? So do we create the perfect astronaut for Mars, a guy who, or a woman that maybe needs less air, that can survive in higher radiation zones? Do we create soldiers that don't feel pain? You can see where it goes. Have we invented the technology of our own extinction? If you do that inside using human technology, if you change an egg cell or a sperm cell and cut out a piece of DNA, that's going to be in the human evolutionary germline forever. So if we screw it up, there's a danger to the entire race. Next. Thanks, Linz. So the question can legitimately be asked, right? What can go wrong? Are we playing God? What do you think about in terms of what makes us human on the level of a DNA? Is somebody who has an implant and is enhanced, are they still human? And if the neighbor's kid has one, I don't know, maybe my kid needs a little higher intelligence, or maybe I want blue eyes and blonde hair. That's the least of our concerns, but nevertheless, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about humans for the very first time being in charge of our own evolution. Next.
Oh, actually, Jack.
Yep.
I think you asked me to remind, that was our first question. Can you go back, Lindsay?
Sure.
First
Thanks,
of all, can we give Jack a round of applause? I mean, that presentation and overview on technology is absolutely fantastic. And those of you who make presentations know how much work went into each one of those slides. I mean, I know Jack doesn't cut any corners. And so that was really fantastic. Jack, great job.
Thanks.
In terms of this question, Jack, you want me to remind you though, because look, the goal here today is much more than anything to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, the first question we want to ask you, Yuval Noah Harari, most of you have heard of him, wrote the book Sapiens, Homo Deus, and 20 Lessons for the 20th century or 21st century. Ultimately, so we want to hear from you. And Arthur, I'm going to put you on the spot, if you don't mind. Yuval Noah Harari tells us that, human beings 100 years from now will be as different to us as we are to chimpanzees. What do you think of that concept, Arthur? And how do we prepare for it?
Well, I thank you, Joe. While Jack was talking, I realized that there's going to be a lot of technology change, but I think the technology of the human spirit, I don't know whether or not genetics is going to be able to change that in 100 years. So my concern is not about the personally, not about the technology, but will we lose kindness in 100 years? Will that be something that is sort of a ossified and a relic of the past, put into the dustbin? Will honesty be something that is no longer important? So my concerns are that I still think in 100 years, we will need to belong. I think belonging is so important. Relationships, whether it's with our family, whether it's with our friends, whether it's with a higher being, whatever it might be, I do think this notion of belonging will always be with us. But I also think it's endangered today. So that's how I made sense of what Jack was saying, is that I think in terms of the market, yes, there might be this notion of extinction technology, but I'm more concerned about our moral technology and
Thank you, Arthur.
how that grows in the next 100 years.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, I just want to jump in because what Arthur said resonates with me. I was thinking about technology and immediately how to, especially with a certain generation, I'll include myself here. How do we, and maybe Joe and Jack, how do we navigate our own anxiety about the technological changes? Because there are the things that Dan was talking about. I didn't have any clue. It's the first time I'm hearing that terminology.
Yeah.
And I'm an educator and I'm thinking, whoa, kind of what Thomas said earlier, we need to make sure we get this in schools, but things are happening so quickly. How do we take care of our own emotional support? Or how do we provide emotional support to one another as we go through these changes?
That's good. And Joe, yeah.
I'm just going to want to make one plug for One World and one plug for character.org that Arthur, so technology is a tool.
Thank you.
And the values are 100% what are going to determine the future of humanity. So we at One World would like to bring character education into each of the 3 future-ready competencies we try and build. Global competence, financial education, and technology awareness is what we're talking about today. But character,
Yeah.
values will determine humanity. So I thank you so much, Arthur and Joanne, for saying that. Back to you, Jack, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And it's an important concept, right? I as a science teacher, I used to say science is, and now I'll just say technology is neither good nor bad. It's only as good as the hands it's in. It's only as bad as the person who's using it.
Oh,
Right,
Jack,
so-
can I ask one? I was going to do a quick survey to take advantage of Zoom. If we could do the thumb survey, if you don't mind. And I was just going to ask, so just quickly on this particular question, if you think and if you could, we could see your screens for those of you who can share their screens. So if you think 100 years from now will be as different from chimpanzees, 100 years from now, the beings on the planet Earth will be as different from chimpanzees as we are to chimpanzees. Up, not sure, down. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of quick surveys. So if you think it's likely that the beings on the planet Earth are going to be as different from us as we are from chimpanzees, up, not sure, down. Okay, time to vote. Oh, wait, we got one futurist, Jacob. There you go, Jacob. All right, great. Next question, Jack. And one thing, I just want to watch our time. We're 45 minutes left.
Good.
And again, we're going to ask you to keep your answers like Joanne and Arthur just did, crisp, about a minute, so we can generate a conversation. Great job, everybody.
Right. And then,
In fact, the next question is a great one.
okay, so think about this. How would you finish the sentence? In 10 years, I will be working as. In 10 years, I will be working as. Let's hear from you. Pop up like popcorn. Go ahead, just call it out. In 10 years, I will be working as.
All right, I'm gonna check our youth. Jacob,
Yep.
what are you gonna be doing 10 years from now? Lindsay, would you
I think
start?
my job, I don't even think my job in 10 years is a job right now. I think the
What
reality
is it
is,
gonna be?
I'm not sure, controlling technology, probably. I think we're just in a world where technology is going to replace the everyday jobs that we are, and then it's just us to manage the technology and just oversee it.
Right.
I'd say
And
something
the
like that.
ethics behind it, right?
And the ethics behind it, yeah.
And the ethics behind it, right? Dignity in a digital age is
Yeah.
a book by.
Oh, William, where are you gonna be 10 years from now?
I'm looking to do something in engineering, so I feel like that is something that will most likely be involving a lot more technology than it would be now, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing specifically,
Right.
because, well, there's so much time between now and 10 years from now.
Sure.
Anything could happen.
And Thomas Ross, other than being the future successor to Lindsay Pockel as executive director of One World and president of World.
He's got you out the door already, Linz. Holy
what are
cow.
you gonna, maybe 20 years. I know. What are you going to be doing 10 years from now, Thomas? You're muted, Thomas. You're muted. Or is it me?
You're not muted, but I think you disconnected your audio.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Thomas, come back.
Now?
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
I hear
Yep.
you, yeah.
So I think Jacob hit the nail on the head. Probably some type of role that at least a large component of it is still up in the air and has not really come into play yet. But I think something with data and just applying data.
Annie, what are you going to be doing 10 years from now?
Well, I think in 10 years, I still be a teacher because I read a report that it said teacher maybe is not going to be that easily replaced. So.
Right. Our roles may change.
Yeah, it is.
Right. The children may be working
Yes.
at a computer doing their math, but by the same time, AI
Right,
is
but
going to give
how
us
the way we teach will be changed, right?
and
the way
virtual
to-
reality. Virtual reality has hit
Right.
education now. So they'll go on a field
Right.
trip to anywhere in the world. They'll go back in history and meet famous people, right? They'll go back to the dinosaurs, because it'll all be virtual reality. And that's in between learning the math, the science, and we're going to be able to test kids individually. So education is going to be customized per child by artificial intelligence and robotics. It's a beautiful thing. Lark, what are you going to be doing 10 years from now?
I will take care of flowers and selling emotions to people, teaching them how to be happy. That's what I'm going to do.
The world
And
needs
I'm
a lot
going
more
to
of that.
join Lark.
You're already doing that. You're already doing that, Lark.
I'm joining you, Lark. In 10 years, I'm coming with you.
Kira?
Wonderful.
Kira, what are you going to be working at 10 years from now, Kira?
I mean, I really don't know. I feel like a lot of the answers are already really good, and also very conscious of the fact that in 10 years, the options may be slave to our robot overlords at this point.
I sometimes think my refrigerator is reporting to the mothership. So I'm kind of right there with you. Anybody else want to jump in here? 10 years from now, anybody? I'll offer it out. Otherwise,
I
we'll move
want to
on.
hear Dr. Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz, come on. You're going to live to 120, Dr. Schwartz. What about
I think
10 years from now?
I'm being very serious, everyone. I think in 10 years from now, I will finally learn how to be the best husband I can be.
Oh, man.
He's got that answer down pat, doesn't he?
He's my hero, man. He's my hero.
I believe it, though.
He carries it in his wallet.
Join my club. I can show you the Chinese wisdom.
Thank you, Lark.
Intercultural connections. There we
Hold
go.
on. Is Dan still with us? Dan, are you still with us? I know he had to leave. He may have had to
Yeah, it
go.
looks like he's on, but
Yes, I am. I was going to leave, but I've been listening. So.
All right. So Dan, 10 years from now, where are you going to be? We need to know where you're going to be 10 years from now.
This is tricky. So let me say just one quick thing. When I started my career, I've always done data science, data mining work. And when I started my career, I used Excel, early versions of Excel.
Yeah.
And I used to say to myself, actually, I would use a program called SAS, which is software for the application of statistics. It's still available. It's actually a $4 billion company as well. But I would use SAS when Excel would tap out. You could not have more than 16,000 rows of data in Excel. And we used to always say, thank God, all these people who have Excel can't do anything with more than 16,000 rows of data. They have to turn to us with our more advanced tools. And then Excel went to 32,000 rows of data. And we're like, oh no, we're going to lose our jobs. All these people are going to be able to do what we do because Excel can now do 32,000 rows of data. But the data sets got bigger. And then Excel went to 1 million rows of data. And we're like, oh, we're so screwed. We're going to lose our jobs now. They can do anything. And the data got bigger. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, big data.
Yeah.
But the data got bigger. Now we're crunching tens of millions, hundreds of millions. You're talking petabytes of data that need to be analyzed. And so Excel never quite keeps up. So the problems get more complicated. So I suspect, as much as I like to think, well, all this stuff is going to get automated with AI and the world's going to perfect clean data and I'll be unemployed sitting on a beach somewhere, I suspect I'll still be doing what I'm doing today, which is cleaning dirty data, trying to find insights and trends in data. It'll just be analyzing video instead of text, or analyzing, much larger data sets than I'm analyzing today.
Dan, I think I got a bumper sticker. Clean your dirty data. Something along those lines.
Clean up your own dirty data.
Something along those lines. Anna, what's our slide bank? Let's see what's going on there.
Yep.
I want to move quickly now to
I think we're
UNESCO. So Anna,
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Hey, that's the best compliment I've gotten all day. So the UNESCO report we've discussed in a couple of different places, but for those of you who don't know, the UNESCO report was released in November, and essentially it was the third of its kind, and it's a guide of what needs to happen in all corners of the world in order to keep up with the changes that are being made, but then also to provide a more equitable planet for all, and in multiple different facets. The different COLPs are based on the different aspects of the report. And so for this report, or for this COLP, the UNESCO report calls for the schools to prepare our students for the unprecedented impact of digital transformation in our societies and our daily lives, vigilantly ensuring that ongoing technical transformations help us thrive. And so right now we can discuss a little bit more about how are we doing in terms of schools, and how are we transforming them in order to keep up with this technological change.
I'll jump in real quick. One is there's a recent report from RAND Corporation in which they have proven that VR technology helps learning. And so we know that's where the future is going to be, but the report really focused on equity, how expensive VR technology is right now, how it's really just for the more privileged, affluent school communities. And so as we look at technology, I think there has to be a sense of how we're going to distribute this technology equally across the world.
Critical point, thank you. And UNESCO speaks to it often and throughout the report.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to that, seeing how many nonprofits are popping up in order to try and support the areas or the schools that can't afford VR, but obviously need it in order to keep up with this exponential change, right?
And I'll just jump in from the teacher ed perspective. We need to do a better job of preparing our teachers before they go into the field. And I see everybody shaking their heads because they're just not, they're not ready. They're not there.
What kind of things you think they need, Joanne?
I think they need to hear something like a conversation we're having right now. There's not even an awareness. They're so focused on having kids pass standardized tests that they can't even think abstractly, right? They're very concrete thinkers. They just want their kids to pass, and they're not thinking about the collection of skills that students need in order to be 21st century participants.
And I think in addition to that, also the role of the teacher changing. And I'm curious, like Thomas, Jacob, William, Kira, those of you who are coming out of school, I know as a teacher, my students taught me way more about technology than I could ever teach them or that I could keep up with. And so I needed to release some of my control as a teacher and have my students take control and teach me those things. And so needing that shift as well.
Can I just add, I'm gonna use another quick survey first with the 3 students, Thomas, Jacob, and William, and Kira, if you can share your screen. Because Dr. Ferrara just mentioned, this conversation isn't really entered the traditional school. So the question I have is pretty obvious. How well has the traditional school prepared you for the kinds of things we're talking about, technological change? Really well, average, or bad? Let me see the thumb vote. Thomas, William, really? So, okay. Okay. Now now everybody. We had the students, now everybody. Okay, wow, okay, pretty confident. All right, next slide. Do you want to, I think, Lindsay, you want to go talk about this? Yeah.
Sure, we can. And then also many of you have seen the article by Professor Reimers, the Educating for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And again, another aspect that has inspired our COLPs. Professor Reimers also was one of the key members in writing the UNESCO report. So you can see where a lot of those ideas are parallel. But those 5 principles being to start with the end in mind, to leverage professional networks, to create a lab of constant learning, project-based learning, PBL, engaging your students, and then also to collaborate in diverse groups. And the UNESCO report calls for those similar aspects. And so like part 1 being starting with that end in mind when designing curriculum, UNESCO talking about the digital literacy, how we really need to ensure access to basic human rights for all, how urgent it is for us to structurally revision our education system. Also how the disconnect between how immediate this needs to happen versus how slow it takes and how long it takes for policy change, education, and then also just structural change. And then also as Joanna discussed, needing to educate teachers, right, in the professional development. Also, that part 2, leveraging our important networks, making sure that we are doing exactly what we're doing right here, right now, having people from all, I think we are representative of 3 or 4 different continents right now. Bringing educators together, bringing people, bringing students, bringing people from all different generations together to have these conversations, and specific also to how we can utilize technology. The learning by doing, project-based learning, making sure that students are in the classroom doing the work, experimenting, trying, instead of, again, it being very top-down, teacher to student. Students learning together, teachers learning from students, and making project-based learning communicative. And then also, as we mentioned, there's 3 or 4 different continents here, making sure that we're all learning from diverse teams, so that we're not just sharing like-minded ideas or philosophies, ideologies, but really getting multiple different perspectives, and how when we're having these valuable conversations, we learn and we grow much much more than we do when we're in comfortable conversations or conversations with people who think similarly. And then the power of the problem-based education, and there's an incredible amount of research out there. And I would be curious for those of you who are still in school or coming out of school, how much project-based learning you've done, and kind of the differences between when you're allowed to experiment, when you're allowed to do a longer term project versus just the stereotypical school day, and how that's impacted. And then, as we just discussed too, with VR and how we can utilize technology as support for that problem-based learning. And then also talking about this as a transitional generation, right? So the Gen Z / lower end of millennials being the transition generation of living in a world without technology or very little technology, up through, I mean, kids as young as who before they can even speak know how to use a cell phone, right?
Right.
And how that's going to vastly change. I'm 31. I remember when we got internet in our house and I was like 12, right? And that was that dial up, and you sat there for hours. Like, you would download a song before going to school. And then when you came back from school, it might be downloaded. And that's crazy. You know, today you don't even download, it's just there.
Right.
And so how much that's changed, and then also how are we going to keep up with it? And like how many of you were talking about, there's jobs that are not even going to be created yet.
Right.
Beautiful. All right. So I think I'm going to go over the survey results. Lindsay, if you could share the survey results. And I'm going to go through these very quickly in the interest of time. Now, again, if you guys are also another data point for us. So I'm going to ask you to answer the questions yourself as well at the same time. Strongly agree, sort of in the middle, or big disagreement, right? So we're going to go through the first questions. And so we're going to have our own data point as well. So the first question, Lindsay, next slide. So our school helps develop a range of future-ready competencies in order to prepare our students for a 21st century world. And we basically teach exponential change, teach our students to be resilient, independent, lifelong learners. Do you fully agree? Let's see your thumbs. Come on, guys. If you fully agree, you're here. If you think we're not, we're doing okay, we're doing okay job. Here in the, if you could highlight, so basically this was a pretty good response in the English speaking respondents on the left. If you could highlight 26% or 28% strongly agree. If you could just highlight that, Lindsay, the arrow on the purple there and the green in the upper left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner. The English slide. Yeah, there you go. So if you just about the purple and the green are the basic agreement. If you could highlight the purple and the green, Lindsay.
Yep.
There you go. So those are the agreements. And on the right, on the Mexican slide, there was Spanish speaking side. If you could highlight the purple and green again. There you go. So pretty. I think the votes so far in English and Spanish are pretty good. And then down to the Chinese response is even more powerful. And Annie, do you agree that in China, basically you guys are doing a terrific job as it relates to preparing kids for a 21st century world? So the Chinese response is more positive. You think that's warranted, Annie, or maybe a bit optimistic? You're unmuted, Annie.
I think it's a little bit more optimistic because I don't think we did very well in prepare children for the rapid changing technology. We worked more on the universal values, the common values people need to have to deal with the change. I think we work more on that, not on
excellent. All right.
Technology.
Well, that's great, Annie. In fact, next year, that's a great preview for next Saturday's meeting with Mr. Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz, and And we'll be talking about universal values next week. Okay, second question. Are we second question? Oh, yeah. Okay, our school prepares kids for a world, a VUCA world. All right, so a VUCA world. How many knew the word VUCA coming into today's meeting? Raise your hand. Didn't? Okay, great. So Cornell has a degree in VUCA leadership. Joanne, what percentage of teachers do you think have heard? I know if I ask my friends, I would say 1 in 10 has heard the word VUCA, just generally speaking. Would you say that's similar among teachers, Dr. Ferrara?
1 in 10, yeah.
Okay, now, so we prepared kids for a working world very well. Let's do the online vote right now. Very well, okay. Okay, there's our vote. All right, and then again, if you'd highlight on the left there, Lindsay, a pretty good response from the English speakers. Not a bad response from the Spanish speakers to the right there, Lindsay. And then again, China was pretty positive on this front. And again, I think this is the challenge with short questions like this. Like Andy's saying, you know, on the values front, they may be doing a good job, but not so much in terms of understanding what singularity is. Next slide. Okay. Oh, professional development programs for preparing people for this. All right, let's do our vote. Yes, there's lots of them out there. Not so many, none. Okay, and again, you can see the responses here are lower, which makes sense. I think that's consistent with what we're seeing. Next. Our school searches out opportunities to use technology and exponential thinking in order to mitigate socio and economic challenges. We talked about equity. So anybody who has access to the internet, anybody who has access to a phone can be as smart as they want to be. This is the great equalizer. And that's where the teaching needs to go. Lifelong learners, take responsibility for your education. So anyway, how well are we doing that right now? Terrific, middle, low. Okay, thank you for your votes. And I think that's consistent with what we're seeing on the screen. Not too bad. All right, next slide. Support services that assist teachers, like Dr. Ferrara, thought you made a very telling comment. A lot of the terminology Dan used, you're not even familiar with. The world's changing that quickly. So one of the big questions for us, how do we support teachers? That's where the whole rationale of being in one world. We are an enrichment program trying to bring these concepts. It took me 10 years to figure out that a non-educator like me can bring value to the education field by introducing some of these concepts. And again, you know, not a bad response. The Spanish speakers actually think they're doing a better job, and China is consistently good. Next slide. Oh, here's the equity question. You know, our students do have access. So on the English speakers, you know, 70% of the kids do have access. Not so much from the Spanish speakers, and in China they have more. So again, there's that equity question that we need to deal with. And I think, well, do we want to vote? I think we'll all agree we need to improve our equity, right? Okay, next slide. This is sort of the same question, but ultimately this is the UNESCO question, right? And UNESCO is very clear. The unprecedented impact of digital transformation. We need to make sure we're going to use it to help us thrive. The Sustainable Development Goal for 2030, bring an end to poverty and hunger. I truly believe that if we use technology properly, we can bring an end to poverty and hunger. And so ultimately, if UNESCO came to your classroom today and you said we're doing a great job of incorporating technology into our classroom, how would we vote? Don't worry, UNESCO, we got it covered. Not so good or not so, you know, where are we for UNESCO? Okay. All right. And I think I think that the nature of the question might have been a little difficult. I think that made is that my last slide, Lindsay? That was my last slide, I think, right? So if you go back to the presentation, Mexico did a slideshow as well. I'm just going to briefly say that in Mexico, it was more of a different kind of questionnaire. And when they were able to ask more questions, I think that the need that Dr. Ferrara talked about earlier was really clearly needed in Mexico. Now, Jack, I'm looking at the time. In theory, we have 21 minutes. I'm going to ask that we go over about another 10 minutes, but we need to go through these pretty quickly, these questions, discussion questions. Thank you.
Take one from this slide, just one, again, because we can move on if you want.
Oh, yeah, so, okay, so, well,
How about what our schools are doing right and what could be done better?
perfect. And just stop sharing if you would, Lindsay. Is Dr. Ferrara, you still with us? Or I know she had to leave, so.
She had to leave.
Yeah. You know,
So-
I see a major difference in colleges and universities. They get it for the most part. And I see more global programs in advanced education spaces, and especially also in ed. That's very encouraging to me.
Well,
But
Thomas,
at the elementary school level, at the high school level,
Thomas and I actually talked about this yesterday, Jack. Maybe, Thomas, could you talk to that, what Jack's point making? Because you were talking about this a lot yesterday.
Yeah, so I completely agree, Jack. At least my university, I think is very forward thinking compared to my high school. I also go to a school where 1 in 3 students are international students. So that has just been a tremendous opportunity for me to interact with people and meet people from almost every corner of the globe. And even in our classroom discussions, just having them there to contribute and share their opinion enhances the discussion tenfold.
Right.
And Thomas, if I could, to make a plug from One World, when we were talking yesterday, you talked about how well One World prepared you for that versus your traditional school. Could you just talk to that briefly?
Yeah, so, you know, I think that at least my high school, the curriculum that we followed was very ethnocentric. I think we focused on, you know, the traditional subjects, and we didn't really go beyond that. We didn't talk about living in a global world, interacting with people outside the scope of our local community or even our national community. And, you know, when I got to BU is a global campus, everything's about the broader world. We don't really talk about things in the confines of the nation. We talk about things in the confines of the world, which I thought was just a great way to lead discussions. So looking back at my high school education, it was very lacking in that sense on that global perspective. Fortunate for me, I was a part of One World, and that supplemental education I received was highly beneficial because I had already been on calls like these. I already had met people from around the world, and I was open and understanding, and I felt I had a better ability to appreciate interacting with someone with completely different perspectives than I would have if I didn't have that supplemental education.
valuable conversations. There it is. I want to welcome Joanne. Words with Joanne, I see there, has joined us at the bottom of the screen. Hello, and thank you for being here. We're into a maze of discussion questions at the moment. I think let's go to the next one. Oh, Joe, do you want to get in?
Well, just, I was going to ask Jacob, because I know his experience, I think, in Wales is a bit different. And I was just going to ask you, how was your high school versus college experience compared to that of Thomas? And I was going to also, how did the financial education class prepare you or not for?
Yeah, so I was gonna, what I did kind of want to add on to Thomas. I think there's 2 reasons why high schools and colleges definitely have the resources to enable them to use technology better and actually integrate it into education. Whereas high school, I feel there's pressure on grades, just get them through, get their grades and get them gone kind of thing. And that's the whole system. And yeah, so high school, I had no experience on any technological or conversations like this. You know, and you are just from people from your area. There's no conversations from any other areas. Whereas at college, unlike Thomas, my university is very diverse. We have, I think ours is about 1 in 5 international students. And in my first semester, I used VR in one of my courses, and it was like a really good way to use to enhance my learning. So yeah.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very good. Thank you, Jacob. Lindsay, what do we got? So how important is it that we understand the impact of what we're talking about this morning? And in terms of teaching, you know, specifically, we say professional development, but, you know, and I'd go one step further. I would talk about how we evaluate educators in reference to how they're dealing with creating a transition generation that's going to be able to to flourish in that world, right? So not just giving teachers the information, but even evaluating them on their use of technology and their use of the, and a quick plug before we do run out of time, for Arthur's program next week, because all of these existential issues are going to come down to choices we make. And those choices are in school, right? Those deciders, those decision makers are young people we're educating right now. You know, and so the idea of universal values and ethics as it applies to technology or as it applies to education, I hope we can all make it next week to Arthur's program on Saturday morning. So, and a well-deserved plug. So what can we do? What can we do to impact teacher training, to impact educated professionals like Joanne and myself, who are saying, what? I'm sorry, what's a Google Doc? What?
So Jack, I'm just seeing Joanne. Welcome, Joanne and Virginia. Joanne is living in Canada. She's one of our board members and from Nigeria. So Joanne, you have multiple perspectives from which to respond. Do you want to help us understand how we can help teachers prepare for 21st century teaching?
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, when I saw that question, that was really a very profound and deep-seated question, because as educators, it's the world is evolving, as you rightly said, Joe, and it's a big conversation you keep having. But why do we still stay the same? And education is one thing that, really needs to evolve. But again, it's a two-pronged thing. You want to educate teachers, but has the curriculum changed? And even if the curriculum has changed, how much of the move, you use one word all the time, Joe, that the exponential growth. How are teachers growing exponentially, How much, as you rightly said, I can't remember, you talk about Google Doc, you talk about artificial intelligence, you talk about technology, how much do teachers know? And I think it boils down to, workshops like this or programs like this, inviting teachers to the table, sharing with them, okay, these are resources readily available for us as educators. But then the next step is, how do you access it while at the same time thinking about the curriculum you have to uncover in your classrooms? I use the uncover because there's so much pressure on us now. And I'm glad COVID happened, because without COVID, we would have all seen how defect we are with technology. And so it's very important teachers have that continuous professional evaluation, continuous professional development. But I take back that word evaluation. You cannot evaluate us as educators without us going through the rudiments of what is technology, how can this be assessed in our classrooms, what kind of technology do we use per curriculum, per program. And then again, this is me from Nigeria, though I live in Canada. The teachers in Nigeria, we have those layers that teachers will debar teachers from using technology, access to internet, computers, and all of that. Our teachers, do we even know how to use the minute, just simplest thing of Microsoft Word or Apple? We don't. This is not speaking for myself, but speaking for so many teachers holistically out there. So I think it's going back to the rudiments. What do teachers need to know about technology?
Yeah. Thanks so much. And now, Jack, if I could, Virginia.
Yeah.
Where are you coming to us from?
Good evening. It's evening here in Kenya. I am coming upstate, from Kenya, Nairobi. Okay. I am an educator. I train young people on work readiness skills, and therefore this topic is so compliant to what I am doing. Karibuni sana. We say karibu, welcome, and I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. Virginia, now I apologize. I think you might have gotten the timing wrong because we started a little bit earlier. But when we finish, I want to make sure I get all your contact details, and we'll continue to work together. Great, Jack. Arthur, please.
I think it would be really prudent and wise for us to realize that there's a reason that educators are preparing kids for a life of tests. That's stitched into national policy, state policy, local policy. There's a reason that teachers are trained and teachers in classrooms prepare kids for a life of tests, because that's what they're being asked to do, told to do. I really think One World's challenge, our collective challenge, is exactly what Virginia was saying. Not to prepare kids for a life of tests, but to prepare them for the tests of life. Critical thinking, resilience, all those different words we saw earlier, but no one gets measured for that. They get measured or they get assessed for those life of tests.
Right.
Until we change that, I'm not sure whether or not we're really going to get to the core of the problem.
Thanks, Arthur.
Maybe you should go to the next question. I know
Yeah,
we have, yeah.
Let's maybe take on one more question or two, maybe two. Let's see how we operate here.
Jack,
Liz,
I was
what's next?
wondering, maybe we go through the various questions if you want. I think we're going to have another 20 minutes or so. So
good.
I don't know if you want to go one by one or show everybody what we have and then bring them all together, whatever you think makes sense.
Let me run through the questions quickly, and then we'll kind of pick and choose the ones that are speaking to us. So what are some of the values and dispositions and skills, right? And notice, I'm not saying knowledge. What are the values? What are the attitudes? What dispositions and skills are going to be needed in the next generation?
Oh, this is too rich to pass up, Jack. Can we ask?
Okay, take it right from the top then.
Too rich. And again, 30 seconds per respondent, just so we can, keep it moving. But Joanne, 30 seconds. What are the skills that kids need today? Are you muted maybe, Joanne?
Yes.
All right, Thomas, what are the skills the kids need today?
Okay, so
Oh, sorry, Joanne, 30 seconds. Kids and skills need today.
what skills do students need today?
Yep.
I think who just spoke last, critical thinking, being able to really analyze, problem solving, critical thinking, analytics, and being able to analyze the environment and think ahead, think
Beautiful.
forward. And as one phrase you use all the time, future readiness.
There we go. Fantastic. Thomas, what skills do you need to be future ready?
I think probably the most important skill is to be a continuous and lifelong learner.
Yep.
I think education should not stop when you graduate, and your ability to continue your education and move pace with technological change is the only way forward, because like Dan said, we are at the slowest pace technology innovation will be at. And if you don't have an ability to keep pace and to continue your education beyond your degree, you will fall behind.
Yes.
Annie, what skills?
Yes, thank you. Let's hear from some of our Chinese educators.
Yep.
Lark, Annie, Vicky.
I hope they didn't fall asleep. It's
Yes,
10:30.
I'm here.
Vicky, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the most important skills is the ability of learning and the ability of cooperating with the others. Yes,
so the ability to work together and collaborate.
Yes, because
Perfect.
Talking about the ability of learning, just because we are in the age of rapid changing, and maybe we can say that we are doing good in knowing the impact of changes in these times today, but that the change is so rapid. So maybe tomorrow we are not sure whether we are still so sure or clear about the changes in our times. So we just need to keep learning, to know, to keep up, make us keep up with the changes of the times. So the ability of learning is important in my mind.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lark?
Thank you.
Haven't heard from you there for a while, pal. Buck, can you hear me?
She might have had to step away, Jack.
Yeah, maybe she did. She's unmuted still. Anybody else want to get in on this, or I'll move forward?
I will say growth mindset
Yeah.
is universal.
Right. Absolutely. I don't know. So, I can't do it yet, as Lindsay taught us, right? I can't do it. Yeah, I can't speak Spanish yet. That kind of thing. And that's the mindset we need. Absolutely. All right, Lindsay, what else do we got? Let's see if we can put a bow on this.
This is another good one. Sorry.
What's the world going to look like in 2040? And that's there it is. Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
All right, let's go to the full body, if you don't mind. Guys, if we can just take an extra 10 minutes, we try and keep it, but these are two fantastic. Jack's put together a fantastic packet of questions, and I wanted to go through them, but I don't think we can go. Jacob, what's the world going to look like in 2040? You be our guru.
I think it's hard. It's going to go one of two ways. We're either going to go more individually than we are right now, and we're not going to work together as a team, and or we are, and it's going to be a massive global competency, and we can work together, and we can solve all the problems of the world together. It's going to go one of two ways, I think.
Rethinking Humanity would agree with you, because that whole report was, you know what? It could be heaven or it could be hell.
Yeah.
And they're probably leaning a little bit away from the heaven side of it as a challenge to us. So
definitely
one way or
right
the
now.
other.
Yeah, I'd agree with
Scary.
that. Yeah.
Celia, what's the world going to look like in 2040?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your asking me to answer this question. I think the future will be better than now, and I think there will be no pollution and no war, and all people can live a harmonious life. So, and I think people will need robot in the future. Maybe every family will buy a robot to do everything for us. And the children will speak, can learn something happily according to the modern technology. And in the classroom, maybe teachers and the students can be friends, and we encourage students to say to do by himself. And if they have some ideas, they can speak out. And I think there will be very, very good relationship than now. Now, yes.
Two words jumped out at me there, Celia. Two words jumped out at me. No wars. What would the world be like if an educator had bent over and whispered in the ear of little Vlad Putin to say, play nice?
Yes, that is just my dream.
Something along those lines.
Yes.
Kira, Carvin.
I think she might have had to leave, Jack. I know
Okay.
she might have to leave, yeah.
All right, I saw the block there. Virginia, or anybody else want to get in on this? What's the world going to look like, Virginia, in 2040, when I'll probably be 50 or 60 by then?
Virginia, you're muted right now.
Can't hear you, Virginia. You're on mute.
Muted. You have to unmute. Yep.
Okay.
There you
now,
go.
From where I'm seated, if I talk about the world on our side here, I see the world being a world of robots, like Celia has said. I see a world where people will be, it will be a fast world, Everybody will be on the run. I know today people are on a fast lane, but it will be faster then. For the schools, I don't see the need of teachers. Teachers will just be facilitators because anybody can get information from the web. So I see teachers being friends in school as mentors only, as facilitators. That's the kind of world I foresee in 2040.
Right. That's great. That's great.
Wow.
The word critical thinking comes to mind quickly because there is so much information out there on the web, and our young people are going to, as adults are now, struggling to say what is true, what is true and what is not true, what is a fact and what is an opinion. And you go back to the scientific method and say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. but our children and many adults are listening to conspiracy theories and rumors and out and out political lies and having a hard time judging where does the truth lie. And how do we help them look for truth and understand the value of knowing the facts?
We got about 10 more minutes. Should we go back to the next?
Let's go.
Jack, before we do, I just want to ask, as president of the Joe Carvin fan club, I always get to ask Joe a question. Joe, I know the question, what will the future look like in 24 is stitched into your heart. It is just so close to who you are. Is there any truth to the rumor, though, that it's also tattooed, that question, on your arm?
It is tattooed. I got 2040 and 2045 because, as you may remember, for those of you who are familiar with the term singularity, we joke around, but Ray Kurzweil, the futurist who came up with the term singularity, says we'll be able to take our brain, put it in a robot, and live forever. So I'm holding on to 2045. And then, Arthur, you'll be a part of the Joe Carvin fan club into perpetuity.
Arthur, speaking of technological change, though, where are you holding your meetings now that their phone booths aren't around anymore?
Yeah, exactly. But I do want to just, before we go on to the next question, I think your point about Putin is really important. I think one of the things we need to understand is this idea of patriotism, nationalism. And I think in the next, 2 decades, we really have to unpack those words and what it means for our future.
Right, and understand how it ties into the insecurity that Dan talked about when we started, right? And this unsettled world that they're living in. Part of that, I think, is a reaction to that. Joseph.
I just wanted to confirm what Arthur is saying. And, Jack, if you remember, we first started talking about one world, people were nervous about black helicopters coming in. And I want to be 1,000% clear. We think you should and need to be a good citizen of your school, a good citizen of your local community, a good citizen of your national community, and a good citizen of the global community. So I think it's really about values and citizenship, Arthur, what you're talking about. And you can be a great citizen of the United States or China or Wales and the United Kingdom and still be a great global citizen. In fact, the Welsh curriculum, one of their 4 purposes that they're building into the new curriculum is to be a good citizen of Wales in the world. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Arthur. So we got about 10 minutes, Jack. If we could maybe just maybe go through the remaining questions. And Yep.
I would say maybe we jump just to the last question.
Yep, let's go there.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yep, good.
Let's go there. This way we have a little time for it too.
Yep.
Thanks, Linz.
Keeping us on track.
It's leadership, Lindsay.
Not an easy job to do.
Okay, great. Fantastic. All
So
right.
we covered a lot of topics, a lot of ground, right? And you've heard a lot of ideas. You've heard each other, more importantly. So we want to give each of you some space for final thoughts, maybe recommendations, maybe conclude. What are you taking away from this morning's discussion?
Thank you, Jack.
And maybe what can you do about it, right? So what are you taking away? Thought, feeling, and then head to heart to hands, action. Right? What can you do about it? What can you do to help? What little thing or big thing for that matter? So let's take it one at a time.
Jack, I was just going to say, first of all, Jack, I just want to ultimately, can we give Jack a round of applause? I know he spent a tremendous amount of time and effort putting this together. I know my takeaways are fantastic. Second of all, in the interest of time, we're going to ask you to limit your answer to about 1 minute.
Good.
But we definitely want to hear from each and every one of you. Over to you,
Jacob,
Jack.
I'm going to come to you to kick us off.
Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot today, and we're covering about like where we see the world going in technology and how it's only getting faster and more in a sense. And I think Arthur touched on it a tiny bit about trust and honesty. And I think these values are stuff that we actually really have to implement in our future generations now, because I was probably the first generation of people who grew up with technology. You can see the kids now who they just don't appreciate. There's no appreciation anymore. There's no diversity or there's just the key values that I'm not even that just the key values of life in a sense, and you just don't see it anymore. So I think a massive thing for the one world in education is we remind ourselves and our children of trust and honesty.
Okay.
And that's how we can.
So that's the
move
add-on
forward.
to your to-do list as well, yes?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And you may put it aside until those children come.
Oh
Or
yeah,
share it with
yeah.
family
Not
and
now.
friends.
Yeah,
Either
I'll
way.
wait till then. Yeah.
Jacob, thank you. Thank you for
Thank you,
being here
Joe.
today.
Thank you,
I
Joe.
really appreciate it. Arthur,
Mm.
final thoughts, takeaway, and to-do list.
I'd like to pass and come back.
Sure, absolutely. Thomas.
Well, I think everyone today has shared some tremendous and great insights into their beliefs, their feelings, their perspectives. And I think really the fundamental takeaway I have from today is just the impact of this conversation and the importance of this conversation, and how can we continue the conversation going forward to take the ideas we've discussed today and put them into action.
Thank you. And you young folk on the call really give me hope. Even though I tend to be pessimistic sometimes, you always inspire me. So thank you. Lindsay.
I think I second what you just said, Jack. But then also just the importance of continuing these conversations, because there was a lot said here today that I didn't know about, that I wrote down books to look at, things like that. So even just the sharing of resources so that we can all continue to keep up with this exponential change.
Great. Thank you. Virginia.
Yes, thank you. Well, I have my thought today is, I know I came in late, but I've learned that digital literacy and access are a basic human right. I didn't know that. So I'm glad I've known that today. And my recommendation is that we continue sharing lessons, especially from that part of the world, the development world, on what we can do. What are the lessons we can learn from you so that we can make technology accessible to our population back here in the third world country. I know it is not accessible to so many of our school-going children. So let us continue. I would be glad to continue with this conversation so that I learn more from you and from the lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. And One World is ready to help in Kenya in any way that we can. So please know that and make that one of your takeaways as well. We'll do Celia and then Joanne. Celia, what's your takeaway from today, and what do you want to add to your to-do list?
Thank you for a question. From today's discussion, I learned a lot from, especially with the development of modern technology. We educators should adapt ourselves to this change and actively explore effective measures to promote students' all-round development and cultivate students' literacy. And we teachers should trust, discover, support, and guidance children and create a free, respectful learning environment. At the same time, the foundation of education is unshakable, and we should grasp the balance between the present and the future to achieve the state of neutralization. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. Beautifully said. Joanne.
Yeah, I know I logged in late, but I think from what I gathered, from the discussion, I just love the idea that there was a question there that sort of like is holding educators accountable for what needs to be done and what should be done. And I think we cannot have this conversation about, anything at all education without involving the people who work in schools, which are the educators, with the school administrators, with the curriculum. It's all encompassing. When we talk about ecological narratives, we talk about the teachers as well. So I love this conversation, and I think as an educator, this is a conversation that needs to be ongoing, and just like what Virginia said, even though I'm here in Canada, but I'm so passionate about things going on in Nigeria in our educational system. So I really want this conversation to be ingrained, not just for me as an educator, but for our kids in Nigeria, for our kids in Africa, but at the same time, let there be a conversation that is Afrocentric while also bringing in the developed country perspective as well.
Right.
Yeah.
A post-colonial conversation is needed.
Exactly.
Got you. Got you. Lark. My old and dear friend Lark. I mean, not that you're old, Lark, but our friendship is.
Again, she might have had to pull away.
Lark, yeah, Lark, I guess we missed. All right, Annie, are you
Oh,
there? You're there.
Lark, you have to unmute. If you're trying to speak, Lark, you have to unmute. Ask to unmute.
Annie or Lark?
Should we go to Annie and then come back to Lark? Annie?
Sure, Annie, can you unmute and give us your thoughts?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
now we got you.
Okay, good. Thank you. And thank you very much. I feel very lucky because I'm participating this conversation because it's like it is opening like a window for me so that I will know what I need to do because I didn't realize that how the technology is going to change us like so greatly. And I need to be a lifelong learner to adapt myself to such a rapid changing world. And I totally agree with, I'm sorry, is that Jacob, right?
Yes.
Yes, I totally agree with him. He just said trust and honesty. And that's what our school values. Trust and honesty. I think these universal values we're going to share in 3 days are very important. So I'm very looking forward to our future conversation. Yes,
Annie, thank you so very much. Thank you. Lark, are you there?
Maybe we
And
go
we
back
might
to
have lost.
Arthur and then that's it.
Yeah, okay. Sir.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm feeling gratitude right now to Jack, to Joe, to Lindsay, to everyone from One World for putting us together. So I just first want to say that. Thank you to each of everyone involved in One World. For me, what I'm leaving with is this sense of getting outside my comfort zone. And so I can talk about values, the universal values of trust and honesty a lot, but talking about technology is pushing me outside that comfort zone. And I want to say how much we need to do that. And not only doing that, but doing that within such great diversity, age diversity, geographic diversity, gender diversity, racial diversity. I just think that it's sometimes as human nature, we don't want to get outside our comfort zone. And so what I'm being mindful of is how important for us to be intentional to get outside our comfort zone.
Thank you. But and so important, right? Because we talk about people having these discussions in an echo chamber where everybody pats each other on the back and tells them how right we are, whereas UNESCO is very clear. Professor Ramers is very clear. The ability to collaborate in diverse groups. That's what COLP is all about. Our committees on learning and practice. I think you're right, Arthur. The diversity and the screen before me speaks for itself. So having you here and knowing from so many places in the world you are right now, I first of all, personally, thank you. This has been a wonderful experience for me. I've learned so much. And I think that's the key. Because if we're educators, if we're going or starting out our careers, I've heard it 2 or 3 times already, right? We've got to keep learning. We've got to keep, as soon as we stop learning, we fall behind. And in this day and age, that's really easy to do, right? So we're here for each other. To feel free if you need to contact any of us individually, come through One World and we'll get you to the right person. It's totally been a joy for me to listen to you and to learn from you today. I just want to thank you all for having been here. Joe, Lindsay?
I'm going to Well, first of all, can we give Mr. Zakara one more, or Dr. Zakara one more round of applause? You know, again, this presentation is not just the result of several hours of hard work, it's really several months of research and study. So I can't thank Jack enough. I want to thank Lindsay, takes all of our presentations and Guy keeps us on track, makes them 10 times better. I couldn't think of a better executive director for one. Can we give Lindsay a round of applause? Finally, I want to express my profound gratitude. Like Arthur, I really want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here today. I have to say, you know, Lindsay and Jack were with me yesterday as they walked me back from the wall. Nervous about who was going to show up and whether we're going to be able to generate a conversation. I have to say this conversation surpassed all my expectations. And we have it hopefully forever. Actually, I'll stop the recording in a second. Hopefully we have it forever, but I can't thank each and every one of you enough. And let's keep this conversation going. Just so you know, Tuesday at 8 a.m. New York time, we have our next conversation on global competence. That will be simultaneously translated. So it'll be the only one like that. And then Dr. Arthur Schwartz is going to lead this conversation next Saturday, 8:30 on universal values. And what was very clear today was that values are fundamentally important to success or failure of humanity going forward. So that's the last word I had, Jack. I'm going to give you the last word, but I can't thank you and everybody else for doing such a wonderful job.
One world, one hope. As our children from Nanjing Elementary School taught us, each one of you represents a hope to me. Each one of us.
Virginia, would you share your email in the chat? And Lindsay, if you could grab that, because I don't know how to do it. If you just make sure we have your contact details. Otherwise, I'm going to run. We're going to do the same thing. Maybe wants to do it in Spanish. We'll do it in Spanish now in 15 minutes. Otherwise, well, I can't thank you enough. Have a wonderful Saturday, everybody.
Thanks, you, everybody.
Yep.
See you again.
Thanks.
Bye.